Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings, combined with Dave versus the MSM. You'll never get this information I provide through the bought-off lamestream fake media. Why? Because, well, as we've outlined, actually, we've been outlining this for 14 years, almost 15 years on the radio, since the inception of the Operation Freedom radio show, that the bought-off lamestream fake media is a tentacle of the deep state. And they're not going to provide you the information you need to know, which is why the independent media, of which this platform and DaveJanda.com is a significant component. To get you ahead of this con that the globalist syndicate is running, the con that ends in the stripping of your freedoms, your liberties, your health, your wellness, your financial well-being, your future, and your life. That's not hyperbole. Now, the way I handle things is a little different than the vast majority of other platforms. I tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is a hopium-free zone. It's a spin-free zone. There are a number of folks in the independent media that are going to tell you all the good, and there is good, and as we'll point out today. But they're not going to touch on issues that are the bad and the ugly. Why? Because it doesn't get them clicks. If they just stick with the hopium and the false hope. Remember those platforms that were telling you, oh, President Trump, he's just going to be out of office for a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. He's coming back. It's all... And I was telling you the straight information that what I was seeing on the inside, there was not a concerted effort to address what occurred in 2020. And many people said, I'm not listening anymore because you're not telling me that Trump is coming back next month or next week or in a year. No, I was telling you the truth. And a lot of people didn't like it. And that's unfortunate. Because for us to win this war, and it is a war against the syndicate, we have to be brutally honest. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We do that 24/7 at DaveJanda.com. Because in this day and age of lightning speed chaos that's occurring, you need to be tapped in every day, not just on Sundays from 2 to 5 on a radio show that we do, which is the best radio show many people believe, and I'm biased, but I think they're right, on the planet. The guests we have, the analysis we do. If you listen to folks that are in syndicated radio during the week, in their entire week's programming, we put more information in front of you, our listeners, in that 3-hour segment than they do in not just a week, but a month. It's a fire hose of information that you'll never get through the bought-off lamestream fake media. You can listen live. Just go to DaveJanda.com on Sundays from 2 to 5 and hit the listen live button. But we're also there with the other 4 to 5 video format shows on content I cannot discuss on any social media platform or on the radio at DaveJanda.com. Become a member of our Freedom family. Support freedom. It's 30 cents a day on the subscription side. And you get the added benefit, not just our shows, the archives, and the email alert service. Join it. It's month to month. Join it for a month. If you don't like it, get rid of it. But why would you? It's your life preserver in this deep sea of chaos that has been created by the globalist syndicate. The title of today's presentation is Enough Already. Prosecute. Enough of the talk. Enough of it's a national security issue. It's enough of, we're going through the files. Enough. If I was this slow as a surgeon, there'd be thousands of people that would have bled to death already. This is ridiculous. Let's start with H.L. Mencken, author. Quote, "The most dangerous man to any government is the man who is able to think things out." That's you. You think things out. That's why you're here. "Without regard to the prevailing superstitions and taboos. Almost inevitably, he or she comes to the conclusion that the government he lives under is dishonest, insane, and intolerable." End quote. I've been telling you that for 15 years on the radio. The interviews I've been doing on other platforms over 30 years, that's the message I drill home. Because I saw it and continue to see it through my consulting endeavors that deal with public policy and healthcare policy specifically. And I started being exposed to this back in 1988, and one of the few people that spoke up. Why? Because there are penalties for speaking up. You leave a much more secure, let's put it, life by being mute. But I can't look at myself in the mirror if I'm mute. No. Because some relatives just asked me the other day, "Dave, why do you do this? You get all these threats, you get all this blowback, you get all people all this censorship. Look at what they're doing on your social media platforms. It's obvious with the suppression and the censorships and the lack of notifications and how they're changing numbers in real time. View counts going down in real time." This is Dave. Why? Because what kid under 18 years of age has a chance in life if I remain silent? I believe none. That's why I do it. For the generation that is too young to vote, too young to make a formidable living. That's why I do it. Brings me to Albert Einstein about, we know we got a government that's dishonest, insane, and intolerable, but I'm going to sit on the couch. Not you, not me. But boy, we know about 95% of the people we know on the couch. Firm roots. In spite of a government being dishonest, insane, and intolerable. Let alone a private sector that's very close to that, if not that. Einstein, quote, "The world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing." End quote. Yeah, that's the problem. Too many people doing nothing. Too many people sitting on the couch. Not you, not me, but we sure know them, don't we? And we can see it right in our government, right? We see the waste, fraud, and abuse that has been uncovered for all to see by Doge and the Dogistas. Yet when Congress had an opportunity to codify what Doge found in cutting entire agencies like USAID and agencies that have stolen, best word, stolen hundreds of billions of dollars, what did Congress do? Well, the Republicans are running it, and, Jim Jordan's there and all these guys. Yeah, they did nothing. They refused to codify those cuts. And as I told you, it doesn't matter if there's an R or D after these cats' name. 99% of them have a big G after their name. Globalist. And they're all puppets. Puppets to a syndicate that wants to strip you and everybody we know of freedom and liberty. There are thousands in this government alone that can be prosecuted. Yet, where's Bondi? What's Cash doing? Bongino, he posts on X every once in a while. Well, what you don't see is you don't see what's really happening. Well, when are we going to see? When are you going to start parading people in front of grand juries and make it known? Do you honestly believe, ask yourself this, if Kamala Harris was elected and whoever she named as Attorney General, Merrick Garland 2.0, do you honestly believe that there already would have been hundreds indicted? You know they would have. This video wouldn't be occurring probably because God knows they would have, all of us in the independent media would have been taken away. Oh, that's not hyperbole. There were threats delivered to many of us in the independent media before the election that, well, when it goes their way again, look out. You're done. Yeah, that's right. But yet we're supposed to sit here when people like Bondi were already on Fox News. Yeah, she's on Fox News every freaking day. If there was a one indictment for every time she's been on Fox News, there'd be many dozens of people on their way to the prison for their crimes that have already been documented. We're reading. Remember she goes on Jesse Waters 2 months ago? I got the files on my desk. I'm going to release them tomorrow. She releases them to people who are influencers, whatever the heck that is, in a binder that's all old hash stuff. And then it comes out, well, she had 200 pages. Anyone in their right mind would have said, wait a minute, Epstein, he's been prosecuted umpteen times. There's all kinds of stuff. There's all these videos. Where are the videos? Where are the tapes? Where's the 200 pages? There should be 200,000 pages on my desk. No. And now we're going through it to make sure everything. Come on. You've had those files for decades, for God's sakes. And they want you to accept this. And that's the problem. Too many people accept it. Not enough people are calling the White House and saying, get her off her rear end. Get Cash off his rear end. Get Bongino off his rear end. Enough of this talk. We want action. That's legal, but we want action holding these people accountable. But no, we're going to sit on the couch and we're going to go, oh yeah, big stuff's coming. Oh. Enough. Time's of the essence. And we don't have 4 years. Too many people, well, we got 4 years. No, there's midterms coming in 2026. We got a year. 1 year. And sitting around and waiting is the wrong answer. Quote, you could prosecute thousands, end quote. Peter Thiel explains how Doge is exposing left-wing and globalist non-government organizations, something we pointed out for a decade and a half, and I was told I was a bad guy for picking on NGOs. They're criminal enterprises for the most part. Not all, but most. Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel, and he has his own issues, okay? But he's one of the titans who at least has meandered forward with some semblance of focus on freedom, liberty, accountability, and transparency. Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel detailed that the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, exposed rampant federal spending tied to certain left-leaning NGOs, globalist-leaning NGOs, which he described as potential fronts for borderline criminal activity. Quote, I think they're scams. I think the nonprofit stuff is out of control. It's sort of like virtue signaling is a sign and that you're doing something evil, end quote. He went on, quote, so much of this left-wing globalist philanthropy nonprofit world was just a cover for borderline criminal activity, end quote. Thiel then argued that fraud in government spending could warrant criminal prosecutions for countless officials. Quote, I think you could prosecute thousands of these people criminally for the thing they wanted to prosecute others for in the past, as far back in the 80s. And the last thing they want you to do is hear about this, right? So they work on their censorship suppression scam. And I've told you for years about the Global Engagement Center that had targeted this platform. And some other entities still do. So the good news, there has been some action. Maybe not out of the Department of Justice, where the primary action should be coming from. Look what Merrick Garland was doing under Biden. Look what Obama's Attorney General was doing. Eric Holder. Man, they were doing that Fast and Furious thing. Remember that gun running operation? Oh. The targeting? The Obama administration was, and I'm not saying this right, it was criminal. But look what they were doing. Very early in their administrations. But we're just supposed to sit there and say, oh, we're going to wait. We're going to watch Jim Jordan take his suit coat off and roll up his sleeves because he's working so hard because he's going to send a nasty email to somebody and do nothing afterwards. Controlled opposition. But we have seen some action, actually, surprisingly, because of his ties to some globalists. Marco Rubio, he's actually been doing okay. Got to keep his feet to the fire. But we've seen some action out of him. Marco Rubio at the Department of State shuts down the government office that's been censoring free speech of Americans. Marco Rubio, quote, in a statement, Rubio stated the Counter Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Office at the State Department, formerly known as the Global Engagement Center. And I was a conspiracy theorist talking about this, right? Remember that? You're a conspiracy theorist saying that there's an entity in the State Department called the Global Engagement Center that is focused on censoring. Might have been conspiracy reality. Quote, Rubio, they were also taking money from this program and using it to fund these NGOs, these third-party groups who were supposed to be impartial. Those groups were then tagging. They were literally tagging and labeling voices in American politics. And yeah, there is an entity called the Pointer Center, that I went head-to-head with years ago because they were doing this. There's a multitude of these entities that were targeting people and suppressing them and violating our First Amendment rights. They should be criminally charged. But no. Rubio goes on, quote, American taxpayers through the State Department were paying groups to attack Americans and try to silence the voice of Americans. Their American people were essentially sending their tax dollars to this government entity, which then worked against them. It's insanity. No, but it's also criminal. What did Mencken say? You're dealing with a government that is dishonest, here's that word again, insane, and intolerable. Insane. Criminally insane. But good for Rubio. Action. More action, transparency, accountability. Department of Homeland Security ends the TSA collective bargaining after bombshell finding of more full-time union workers than airport screeners. They had more people working on union issues that were employees of TSA than doing their job at TSA. More exposure. Biden's IRS caught leaking taxpayer information of over 400,000 Americans, including President Trump. Oh, and we just had this. Remember, from April 1st of 2024, election year, through the end to the beginning of October, the Biden administration, through the Department of Labor, claimed 800,000 jobs were created in that time period. Turns out they just came out. Well, and actually, in looking at that, there were 0 jobs created. Dishonest, insane, intolerable. criminals. All lies. But too many people accept it. Not you, not me. Too many people accept it. So here's the bottom line. Each and every one of us needs to keep the pressure on. I know it's frustrating. I know it is disgusting when we bring information to those we know and love and they go, stop, I don't want to hear it. They need to hear it. Because those that are not willing to learn and find out what's happening in our world, in our own government, are going to be its first casualties. Yeah. Our enemy, the globalist syndicate, they're psychopaths. And they'll stop at nothing. And the way to stop them is to be educated yourself and know what they're up to, so you can take the necessary steps to protect yourself. But the burden of being educated is that you then have to try to educate others, and you also have to put pressure on people that are currently in power. You should be calling the White House. You should be calling your members of Congress and Senate, governor's office, state rep, state senators. What are you doing about this? Enough already. When are these criminals going to be prosecuted that are stripping every American of their freedoms and liberties? We're wise to what's going on. If you don't do something about it, then you are obviously part of the problem. And what we're going to do is we're going to find somebody to run against you. Many people say, that doesn't matter to DC. Oh, yeah, it does. Trust me. There's two things they fear. Whether it's DC or in your state legislators or in your local officials. If they think the public is wise to something and they're going to be held accountable and they're seen as not doing something, that scares the living daylights out of them. It scares them more than not having enough money from the lobbyists to run for re-election. True. No matter what level of government. Transparency, accountability, and them themselves being held accountable is what they fear the most. That an educated public, what do you think they want to dumb down the public all the time? They don't want people educated. Because educated people make other people in positions of power accountable. You're busy. You got a million things to do. God knows. And God love you for doing what others won't do. Trying to educate people and empower people. What I try to do is make that easier for you by having DaveJanda.com. Our radio shows are all archived there, podcasts, our 4 to 5 other video format shows. We have a sister site, Operation Freedom Health, that's based on wellness. Tremendous amount of information. Plus, we also have the products available there. I bring to you people, and if you look at the corporate sponsors, the people that sponsor our platform are people that are trying to help you and protect you. You know, a lot of companies talk about supporting freedom. It's all talk. Very few actually do, on the ground, talk the talk and walk the walk for freedom. You want to know who? Go look at our website, the sponsors. Without them, none of this would exist. Without our subscribers at DaveJanda.com, none of this would exist. And we are very appreciative. Join us. Become part of our freedom family. Keep educating others, no matter how frustrating it is. And keep holding those accountable. And tell them, enough already. Prosecute the thousands, as Peter Thiel identified, the thousands of criminals that have already been identified in the system. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.